Smackdown this past week from Fayetteville, North Carolina. There was no Twitter poll because this show put me to sleep midway through. And when I awoke, it was 4:30 in the morning. And then I had to go back and watch what I missed. So no poll this week. The highlight was The Miz and Bray Wyatt stuff. I thought the low light, no surprise, was the garbage at the end of the show with Roman Reigns, Baron Corbin, Dolph Ziggler, and the dog food. And here's the thing about this. I actually thought that they did a pretty good job of getting heat on everybody ganging up on Roman Reigns. It was this like 10-on-1 attack on this guy, and they were handcuffing him to the ring post, handcuffed his hands over his head. It was getting great heat. It was this great heel on babyface beatdown. But then they had to go and do the dog food shit because he's the big dog. Woof woof. I cannot wait for this feud to be over already. And yet, watch them extend this all the way to the Royal Rumble match. You watch. If this doesn't win for worst feud of the year, then it's got to be number 2, behind Rollins and The Fiend. The main event of this show was a nearly 20-minute match between Roman Reigns and Dolph Ziggler. Who could possibly care about Roman Reigns against Dolph Ziggler? You get people who say, oh, it's a really good match. So what? Who cares? We get really good matches on TV every week. Why should I care? The outcome was never in doubt. Did we really need 18 minutes to figure out that Roman Reigns was going to defeat Dolph Ziggler? But those 20 minutes existed all for the purpose of building to the big angle at the end, which involved Baron Corbin, Dolph Ziggler, and all of Corbin's minions who carried him to the ring on his giant throne. All of these people beating down the big dog and cuffing him to the ring post with his hands over his head, like Randy Orton cuffing John Cena to the post at Breaking Point that one year and whipping him with the kendo. Actually, it was 10 years ago. Jesus. 10 years of this shit. Oh boy. When I talk about the best of decade stuff in these next few weeks, it's going to be very interesting to go through some of that stuff. But anyway, and I will be covering that, by the way. So that's kind of what this reminded me of with Cena's hands being cuffed over his head. They did the same thing with Roman here. And again, I didn't think any of this stuff was that bad. I actually thought this was good heat. You know, Roman is not as hated as he used to be. A lot of that heat was transferred over to Seth Rollins, and now they're going to, I hope and assume, ultimately turn Seth Rollins full heel and use some of that with him on Raw. But you know, this was actually not a bad angle to get heat on the heels for ganging up on Roman Reigns. Although the one thing that struck me through all of this here is this prolonged beatdown on Roman Reigns where he was outnumbered by like 10 different people. Is boy, Roman must not have any friends. I mean, he's friends with the Usos. I don't even think the Usos are on Smackdown anymore. The Usos aren't anywhere anymore. Not since the last DUI stuff with Jimmy. But Roman Reigns has absolutely no friends in the locker room. This vicious, prolonged attack, and nobody comes out to try to help this guy. So apparently the locker room absolutely hates Roman Reigns. That's what I got out of this segment. But they're beating him up, and then they just couldn't help themselves. You know, the dog costume guy a few weeks ago was bad enough. They just could not leave well enough alone, have this serious, beatdown, and just kind of leave him there, or even get a kendo stick or something and whip him with it or something. Nope. Couldn't leave well enough alone. They had to get out. They had to fetch cans of Alpo from underneath the ring, and Ziggler and Corbin pour cans of dog food all over Roman Reigns. Somebody posted a picture on Twitter of Roman up against the post, looking half dead, with his hands handcuffed above his head, and what really just looks like shit. It doesn't look like dog food. It looks like shit all over him. It looked like the thumbnail to some kind of scat video that you would see on Pornhub. Not the kind of shit that I'm into, but hey, this is what you can see when you watch Smackdown on Friday nights. If that's your thing, hey, I don't know what to say. But I'm looking at this tweet and I'm saying, it kind of does, like, if I didn't know any better and I wasn't a fan of this dumb wrestling shit, that's probably, what would you be left to think seeing a picture of that? What else would you be led to believe? So they're pouring dog food all over him, and I'm watching this thinking, why did I wake up at 4:30 in the morning to go back and watch this? Did I not wake up? Maybe I'm having a nightmare. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'm actually still sleeping, and I'm in the middle of a bad dream. I couldn't delete this shit quick enough off my DVR. I was laying in bed in the middle of the night, pitch black outside. Nobody's around. Nobody can see or hear what I'm doing, and I was ashamed to even be watching this. This is what they think makes good television? I'm sure they laugh about it in the back. That was the story that came out when the dog costume shit they did a few weeks ago, that Vince McMahon had a hearty laugh over the whole thing. I have no doubt that you've got Bruce Pritchard in the back. He thinks this is great shit. Vince McMahon thinks it's such good shit. It looks like shit. How can people not like it? It's shit. Vince McMahon has this weird sense of humor, this warped sense of humor, poop jokes and everything. Vince McMahon loves shit. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, hell, he did an angle one day where the Big Show was literally hosed down in what we were supposed to think was shit. He had shit dumped on himself and his son and the Spirit Squad once in an angle with DX. He's got this weird fascination with excrement, which is kind of interesting given some of the television that he's put out. You can use the same word to describe it. I would use that to describe the end of this segment. Yeah, such good shit. It's shit, all right. That's one thing I can agree on with him. It is shit. And I'm sure this all leads to Roman Reigns throwing dog food on Corbin or feeding him dog food at TLC. They announced Roman Reigns against Baron Corbin at TLC in a TLC match. And I just cannot find it in myself to care. The quicker this is over and done with, the better. And I never thought I would say this, considering how hard they've pushed Roman Reigns and how many WrestleMania main events we've seen him in, and the resistance to the push of Roman Reigns in the last several years, going back to before he got sick. But I sit here watching this extended feud with Corbin and some of the stuff they've done on TV, and I say to myself, this guy doesn't deserve this. Roman Reigns deserves better. Because Roman Reigns is being primed to challenge The Fiend, probably at WrestleMania, for the championship. And this is what they're doing with this guy right now. This is kind of the placeholder feud they have for him right now. They are doing no favors to Roman Reigns with segments like this. The quicker this ends, the better off he and the rest of us will be.